here live on Twitter Spaces and also our YouTube. If you're listening to us from YouTube, feel free to click that bell notification so that you can be made aware whenever our shows go live, and feel free to leave some comments for feedback. And if you're here new on our Twitter Spaces, I have the link to our Discord up above on the nest. Totally free. We got people around the world that are always active across all markets, equities, crypto, commodities, you name it. And we're joined here today by our good friend, Phil Payne, and also our special guest speaker for today, good friend of the brand, Trader Mercury, who's been on here before. One of my first guests. It's been about a month. Good to have him here. And, we actually have some decent volatility now that some of us that are more in the trenches and the crypto specific side of things have been enjoying. So without further ado, what's going on, Mercury? It's good to have you here. How are you feeling today, man? And how have you been?
What's going on, man? I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Doing fantastic. Punted Aptos earlier in the month, and felt like I was a genius. Selling right under $10, and a few days later, it's up. It's up, uh, close to 100% of where I sold it. But um, some profits are better than no profits, right? And also some like a few DeFi things that I don't really feel comfortable sharing here. But overall, man, it really reminds me a lot of that 2019 volatility, and just great to see some action, man, instead of like crabby chop. And good to see what crypto's known for, which is volatility. You know what I mean? How about yourself, brother? What have you been up to?
Um, well, good on you, man. I totally missed the Aptos ride and didn't trade it at all. But yeah, no, about the 2019, it definitely does feel exactly like 2019. It's kind of uncanny. It's almost like, I don't know, like today's market makers took a class on how to make the market 101, from the same people that that created the market in 2019. It really is like all the same sort of cognitive biases that have affected me in 2019 that I'm able to acknowledge now, are just coming back. The same sort of price action in terms of structure, that vertical kind of price movement, the choppy, sweeps of the highs only to, entirely retrace and then continue bouncing later on and then just go sideways for a couple of days. Like that move yesterday on BTC, where we kind of pumped up to like 23,700 or something and then totally retraced that candle. It was just like I was just getting these constant flashbacks, man, of like 2019 trading, like with my head down. I remember spending 12 hours a day just staring at charts, destroying my mental. So it's like it's crazy to like see this coming back. But no, yeah, other than that, man, I did incredibly well, especially for someone who's bearish at the exact bottom, which I always tell all of my followers. I'm always going to be bullish at tops and bearish at bottoms. And no, you did not hear me wrong. And yeah, and still managed to catch the move. I you know, honestly, crypto Twitter has kind of taken a lot out of me because I got a lot of shit for posting bearish bias with the same adamancy that I had all year, pretty much. There was I generalize it by saying that I was bearish since 60K, but the truth is I went bullish 4 times in 2022. And the 3 of the 4 times were the only times when you zoom out to the weekly chart and you can see something other than down. And I had some of my greatest trades in my entire career during those times. I remember the greatest trade of my entire career thus far was the Solana trade. I can't remember what price it was at, but it was in March of 2022, I want to say, and it had like a 50% pump in like 2 weeks or something. And I remember you know, just grabbing so much spot and then like just seeing that thing run. And so, yeah, it's the same mindset. And saying that, hey, I'm not going to be the person trying to call bottoms. I'm not going to be the person subscribing to narratives, as long as they're not applicable. And instead, I'm going to wait for the chart to head to the top right corner, and then I'm going to jump in. And then I literally clearly remember making a 2-minute video, posting it on Twitter the same day that BTC went to 18K. We were trading at 17.4 at the time. And meanwhile, I had been doom posting about obscure time frames. Oh, this rally is led by shit coins and it's going to retrace, blah, 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 whatever, right? All the way leading up into this. And then I posted that video and I said, hey, instead of me continuously, ominously shit posting about obscure time frames, here's an actionable analysis. Here are my actual thoughts today. We were trading at 17.4K, and I clearly remember saying, um, above here, we probably go up to 18.5. And then when we get to 18.5, that is the, previous range low of the past 5 months, prior to FTX collapse and whatnot. And then I remember saying in that video, if we reclaim 18.5 and it's not a structural sort of textbook reclaim that you would like to see, and it doesn't take, a week or two to reclaim that level, and it just keeps going, then you're going to hate yourself for not flipping bullish now. Because the reality of the situation is not everything is, textbook, butterflies, dandelions. It's just not the world that we live in. And you're not always going to get that textbook kind of TA. And if we deviate back inside of that range, you might only be able to acknowledge that deviation after the fact, after we're already trading at mid range, after we're already, 10% above that range low. And man, that's exactly what happened. And then I clearly remember GCR, kind of making his rounds and, clout claiming and whatever, which is pretty funny to see GCR do that. But yeah, he was making his rounds, and I think BTC was trading at 18K. And all I did was I mentioned, I mean, I get the point, like, haha, the point he made was funny. Data Dash was posting all these like doomsday videos at the exact bottom. And then GCR said something like, you saw Data Dash post these kinds of videos and didn't all in long leverage, sell the house, mortgage, whatever. And I laughed at it. And then all I did was I commented and I said, haha, I see the point, but BTC is only up 5%, right? It's like, let's be honest here. We've all succumbed to the recency bias and, gotten used to, because let's remember that 3 weeks prior to this, BTC was trading in a 2% range, right? For 3 weeks straight. And then above that 2% range, you expected like a sort of 2 or 3% move into the next resistance level. And it's like, you guys are, getting euphoric over peanuts. So finally, that same day, Wabi, that same day, I posted that video and said, from here to 18.5, got, I don't know how many likes, whatever. But then I just got all these hate messages just for replying to GCR and telling him that we were only up 5%. I got people, DMing me and saying, screw you, you're a coping bear. I hate you. Like, dude, it was unreal. Everyone's telling me like, oh, he bought the wrong coins, blah, blah, whatever. And all I have done is just continue to implement my system and try to teach, my way, my perspective on the market. And it was really like, you know, overwhelming, I would say, to the point where I almost deactivated the account and just got rid of Trader Mercury entirely. But because it is odd. It's like a weird sort of discrepancy when you are doing well in your own portfolio and your own thesis, and you've given your following a sort of a way of approaching things and a system to kind of adhere to, and a thought process that is actually actionable, right? It's not just, oh, just be bullish, right? It's hey, look for this level, look for this level. This is what's happening. As long as this continues to happen, there's not really a reason for me to go bearish, blah blah blah. Yeah, and it was just really overwhelming, man. So I had to chat with some friends, and they kind of snapped me back into it. And I am here because I do love this stuff, and I do love to teach, and I do love sharing my perspective. I do love the crypto Twitter community. But man, I tell you, during that week or two, and I know a couple of my good friends here experienced it as well. During that week or two, it was just really insufferable, man. But you know, all is fine, all is dandy. I haven't managed to catch any sort of crazy altcoin plays. Mostly just my gains have been spot from majors and whatnot. But regardless, my portfolio sits very, very close to all-time highs. And I think probably just yesterday was a new all-time high for my portfolio. So it's weird when you have that sort of like, you know, I still care about Twitter, but I'm getting, absolutely destroyed on Twitter. I have people in my DMs kind of telling me like how much they hate me and whatnot. And then you get the occasional, "Oh, I love you, man. Thank you so much for your mindset and your teachings and whatever." And that kind of snaps you back out of it. But it's weird to be experiencing that and then be euphoric in the markets. So, but other than that, man, I'm over it now. It doesn't sound like I'm over it, but I promise I really am. Uh, and all is fine and dandy. All the homies are making money. Number go up to top right corner, and yeah, portfolio all time highs. So, really, in all honesty, life couldn't be better. I am incredibly euphoric, and almost to the point where I've gotten arrogant again, Wabi, because I remember clearly. So, with everything that I just explained, it has felt as of the past couple of weeks or so that I'm just on point with the market, right? Being bearish at the bottom did not really affect my P&L. And the way that I explain it to people is I outperformed myself, right? And so, like, comparison, I'm not going to sit here and compare myself to somebody who bought the bottom on Aptos and is still holding their bag and leverage long everything and is sitting at $20 with a bunch of UPNL. I'm not going to compare myself to that person. Comparison is the murderer of satisfaction, right? The only person I will compare myself to is myself. So comparing to myself, I actually outperformed. If I would have sold the Pico top on Bitcoin, just fucked off for a year, came back, bought the exact bottom, and then knowing where price is at today. Actually, I don't think this statement is true anymore, but I think it was true at around $21,000 BTC still. But I outperformed myself, in the event that I would have just done that instead, had a crystal ball, sold the Pico top, came back, bought the Pico bottom. So when you have that sort of outperformance and you give yourself that sort of resume, the problem that you run into, instead of, "Oh, I'm sidelined. Oh, I need to get in. Oh, how do I deal with coping with loss?" The problem that I've run into is, how do I make sure that I don't fall into the same trap of arrogance that I fell into in 2019? Because as we just said, it feels eerily similar. Like, it's eerily similar. And I clearly remember killing 2019, man. I was on a roll. I wasn't really big on Twitter. I wasn't on Twitter yet in 2019, I don't think. But I was just on a roll. I was in various discords. I was posting in there, sharing my thoughts, and I managed to, kind of make a name myself and be notorious in those different communities, just because my thoughts were coming to fruition with uncanny sort of accuracy. At that time, I was the person who was willing to try and call tops and call bottoms, and I remember clearly, navigating through that market with just ridiculous sort of accuracy. And the market humbled the shit out of me come March 2020. So that was absolutely a downfall of mine. And, whenever I catch myself falling into that same trap, I have to kind of take two steps back and make sure to, humble myself and remind myself that I'm just another market participant, just like anybody else. I don't dictate the market. I don't get to predict the market. That's not a luxury that I have. The only job that I have is to interpret what the market is saying and then do my best to navigate that as such. And then make sure that if the market continues saying, or continues what it's telling me, then I benefit. And if it doesn't, right, and if the market, quote unquote, lies to me, then I'll still be okay. So it's a totally, it's totally the same market, it feels like, but it's a totally different trader. I feel like I've elevated myself to a point where, truthfully, and I can say this genuinely, I am constantly at peace, right? I'm constantly at balance. I remember clearly 2019, even when I wasn't spending those 12 hours a day staring at charts, I'd be at my friend's baseball game, let's say, or, we'd be out to dinner with friends or out at a party or whatever, and I'd be checking BTC price every 5 minutes, right? And it's because I had that sort of imbalance, right? I was too risk on. I had too much exposure. I just couldn't get away from it. And eventually that ended up being my downfall, right? If you're out of balance in either direction, I feel like that's eventually going to come back to bite you in the ass. But no, man, totally feel completely at balance constantly with the market, and it is just an otherworldly kind of feeling. And it is something that I feel that I've put a lot of work towards getting at. And I can't truly say that I've mastered trading. I don't think this is something you can ever truly master, but I find myself, inching closer and closer to mastery with every trade that I put on, with every sort of analysis that I make, and yeah, it's an amazing feeling, man.
Well, hey man, sorry for the individuals here on CT. They kind of take it pretty emotional, you know. I for one, like I'm not capable of extracting information as useful as you do, right? You're in a league of your own, brother, and that's why we appreciate you coming up here. And for 2019, you're definitely right on that. And back in that time, the narrative was kind of like the early stages of DeFi, right? You had Synthetics Network, Chainlink, Matic, Ren, which was known as Republic Protocol. Those were the outperformers. I believe Phantom was an outperformer as well after that initial dump on KuCoin. And if we compare the two, it's sort of like history doesn't necessarily have to repeat itself, but the music often rhymes, right? And I remember in our first conversation last month, you were describing your edge, finding your edge, whether it's moving averages, whether it's narratives. Find your system and stick to it, right? And for myself, it's often like developing narratives, right? And towards the end of last year, I remember seeing this meme coin called Bonk, and the thing went up like hundreds of x's. And my thought process was, where have I seen this before? If something just goes up astronomically to $1 billion and Solana's going crazy, that liquidity has to go somewhere eventually, right? And one thing that a previous guest of ours had said is that fresh charts usually are the greatest risk to reward when liquidity starts coming into the market. And that was sort of like my left curve take. And also being up on these spaces, Mercury, let me tell you, there are other spaces outside of like the crypto Twitter space, and I know you're more of like a trader, like a trader's mentality. But if you ever have the time to go into these DeFi slash Web3 NFT spaces, man, these rooms with Aptos had like three, four, five, 600 people, and they were all from like the most random places, like you know, from Australia, from Africa, South Africa, South America, and it was like this sort of untapped market. And I feel that for the next cycle, a lot of that untapped market, they're going to eventually come back in and fulfill these new narratives. Whether it's AI, like we've been seeing now, you can kind of compare that to like that initial DeFi run. That's sort of like a left curve take, but it's what works for many people as well. But man, have you been looking into any of these narratives, or has it just been like primarily price action over the last few weeks? Oh, and by the way, I
Real,
do want to say, I finally beat God of War, right, the 2018 version, and I've defeated five of the Valkyries, and let me tell you, bro, it got so intense, dude, that like I had to play some Sonic Frontiers music, right, on Spotify. If you put the song from Sonic Frontiers, go on YouTube and you put undefeatable Sonic Frontiers. If you ever want to feel invincible doing something, you listen to that song. It is so epic.
I wanted to say real quick too, Mercury. I'm glad that you mentioned people like when you used to just say check the price 24/7, because I found myself doing that a lot last bull run, and I think that's just kind of a sign that you're over leveraged. Because for like I would have like leveraged longs in or whatever it may be, and you're sitting there trying to enjoy your day, and you're just checking that shit 24/7, and ultimately it's so I think the chances of you actually making a good trade go significantly down when you are in that position where you have to feel like you're looking at the price like just all the time, you know, oh my God, every 5 minutes, it's just like compulsive. And you're so much more likely to make a bad decision if you think of it as the amount of decisions you make, like when making a trade. Like if you get in and out of it, you know, 6 times, the probability that you're going to mess up the trade is infinitely greater than if you just, you know, get your entry, make sure it's not in a place where you're gonna like get liquidated from a 5% drawdown, and then you just walk away. And yeah, so I mean, lately I've just been playing with a lot of the on-chain stuff like Canto and NFTs, and it's been great for me. It's been awesome. It's been a really fun January. It feels so good to just actually have some number go up again, and you know, reminds us all why we got here. So.
Yeah, man, really well said. First of all, God of War 2018 is an amazing game. Like,
One of the greatest ever, dude.
Boy,
in terms of story, oh my, like out of this world. Uh, I have serious FOMO because I can't play the new one because I don't have a PS5. But uh, what else were we talking about? Oh, you asked me if I've been dabbling in any new narratives or like DeFi or anything. I don't really do any of that stuff. So, unfortunately for me, I did miss out on a lot of the altcoin rallies. I put out a watch list literally every Friday discussing what coins I'm watching, but I haven't even had the chance to really watch those coins. Unfortunately, they weren't any of the like top major coins because, and I even mentioned in my recent like video, like something like Lido or something like Gala or something like Mana, because Metaverse was running pretty hot. You know, when they just kind of go vertical and they don't have any structure to them, the only structure that's visible is like on a 1 minute or on a 5 minute time frame, and everything else just kind of looks like vertical candlesticks upwards. And it's really hard for me to come in and apply my system, not because it's my system doesn't work on those time frames, but because my mental breaks down on those time frames. Like I cannot, I just simply cannot handle being extremely what feels like over positioned, even though I'm risking the same amount. I'm using such a high position, and then you see like a 0.2% move, and it just changes your P&L so much that drives my mental insane. And also, I think I have literal PTSD from 2019 from sitting at my computer, and at the time it was a laptop. It wasn't even a computer, but just from sitting down at my desk and just watching screens for hours and hours and hours upon day. I just can't do it. So I missed out on a lot of the strong coins because they had initially like given like Lido, for example. I even have a 5 minute video discussing why I wasn't going to trade Lido at like $1.10. These are all just journals that I just do for myself, right? Just to keep like track of. And I still have the video, but I literally mentioned like, okay, I'm not going to trade Lido at $1.10 because of X, Y, and Z reasons, and I give myself a whole 5 minute video as to why. And then Lido does like this crazy move, and it just goes up forever. And I could have just positioned in a swing long and just held that forever, and not had to trade, you know, those low time frames, not had to worry about that stuff because the chart just continued to go up only. Right. My biggest worry would be taking too much profit too early, and that's a amazing, you know, problem to have. So it's like yeah, I missed out on all that stuff, and then I'm not willing to succumb to trading low time frames. So I'm just going to sit patiently. In the meantime, I was able to take some leverage long trades on BTC and ETH that did pretty well. I still have a lot of spot from which I accumulated much lower when I flipped my bias to something more actionable. Um, but yeah, I feel pain like you were saying, man. It is kind of crazy that, you know, to think that we do spend so much time at the charts already, and then, you know, succumb to checking price whenever during the day when we're trying to enjoy our lives. And you said something really cool about, or really good about, shit, what was it? Something
What, the
triggered a no, it wasn't that. It was, I forgot what you said. you're not going to take a good trade in that circumstance, and you're
Oh
absolutely
yeah.
right, man. And it's like the way that I break it down is you have when you create a setup for yourself in terms of trading, you have paper foundations and then you have concrete foundations in terms of like for your setup, your justification, your reasoning for entering that trade, your conviction as to why that trade is going to play out. Right. When you're just checking price action, you wake up one day, you see ETH has pulled back -6%. You just decide, oh, I'm just going to buy ETH. It just seems like, yeah, this is a dip. I just want to buy the dip. Cool. Yeah, it's a terrible trade. I don't care even if the trade bounces. It's just a terrible decision. It's terrible decision making process. And your foundation to your setup is made out of paper. So if I come, sneeze on your setup, all I have to say is, "Oh, did you hear about Bits Lotto that just went under? That's really bearish." And you're going to think about that trade that you just entered on a whim, just because you woke up, and you're going to think, "Oh shit, Mercury's telling me about Bits Lotto. Dang, that's actually damn, maybe I need to market. I'm going to market close, right? That's literally your thought process. And then it doesn't matter what happens in the market from there because you just go on this like terrible like tangent, this like emotional roller coaster of it doesn't like it literally does not matter what the market does from there. It could go up 1%, it could go down an additional 2%. It doesn't matter. You're going to just be in this terrible decision making process because you knocked over that domino, right? And that domino knocked over another domino and it knocked over another domino. And you just find yourself in like the middle of, you have to take action. You just don't know what to do because all the options that are available to you still feel like they are branches of the options or of the actions that you've just taken recently. So it's I hope that made sense because it's really I want everybody to hear
No,
that.
that made perfect sense, dude.
You just feel like the only options available to you are the same, are still stringing from the dominoes that you already knocked over. And it's a terrible mindset to be in. And I started reading a book, guys, and I don't read books often. I really don't. But when people ask me, what are your favorite books to read for like markets? The irony is that the best books that I've ever read about markets, and I've only read about maybe 4 books related to markets. And in my entire lifetime, I've probably read less than 50 books. But the best books that I've ever read that help you build a sort of foundation to approach markets with and become like this methodical trader who approaches the market as if he's already figured it out, and then you come to eventually if you act like a winner, then you become a winner, kind of thing. The best books have nothing to do with markets, absolutely nothing. The book that I was reading, which I just finished yesterday, was the Book of Five Rings by Miyamoto Musashi. And I might have butchered his name. If I did, I apologize. But he's essentially this lonely samurai. I don't know if you guys know who he is, but he's the lone samurai warrior who's like a lone wolf. He started dueling at the age of 13, and over the course of his lifetime, he went through 60 duels, and he killed every single person that he faced in that duel. He was 60-0, and these are life like this is not like a sword fencing. Oh, if we win, haha, let's give our each other high fives after. This is I kill you, you kill me, right? And he's been in many duels where he has to face multiple people, and he just talks about strategy and the way to approach something like that. And he has a quote that goes something along the lines of, "Immature strategy is the cause of grief." And I thought that quote was beautiful because not only does it like when he's saying it, he's talking about, dueling. If you have an immature strategy, that's going to be your death, right? The other person's going to slay you. But when I'm thinking about it, when I'm reading this book, I'm thinking immature strategy in terms of the market. You approach the market without a backup plan, without a backup plan to your backup plan. You only are, convicted on one outcome. If anything else than that, one outcome plays out, you're in ruin. And to me, that's not what it means to be a, proper trader. So, and someone I, am good friends with, High Stakes Capital, and I respect and admire deeply. I don't consider him a trader because he's more of like an evangelized risk taker, right? And I think he would even agree to that. Truthfully, he kind of looks at the market, assesses sentiment, assesses all these kinds of things, and then puts risk onto the market and you know adheres to that conviction. And that's the thing that made him. But to me, what it means to be a trader is to constantly be in balance and just have this deep understanding about strategy and be in a position consistently where, regardless of whatever the market does, you have the ability to adapt and you are willing to adapt, right? And to me, that's the entire thought process behind my system. So when I read that quote and I related it back to markets, it's just like, it really is just beautiful, man. It's like exactly, my thoughts on paper from this guy who lived many hundreds of years ago, who was a complete badass, right? So it's like, sort of that self confirmation kind of thing. But yeah, I just think that less, and relating this back to today's market, I even said this, and I had a couple of friends agree with it, which was nice. Another self confirmation, because I do respect a lot of people here on crypto Twitter, but less decisions and more thought put into those decisions, and that will probably be the theme for 2023. And I think so far, so good, because that has been true. I think that a lot of the people who found themselves, which, by the way, Wabi, when you had me on these Twitter spaces previously, months ago, what was the thing that I was saying and I was regurgitating constantly? Number is headed to the bottom right corner, and people are getting over obsessed with trying to call the bottom. And by the time, right, those same people that have gotten so greedy and over obsessed with this fruitless labor of trying to call bottoms, those are the same people that will fumble the bag on the way up. And I want to believe that that is exactly what has happened. And if you are listening to this right now and you're like, oh, that was me, don't think I'm trying to put you down, but do come to realize your mistakes and try your best to sort of avoid that in the future. And just think about what sort of strategy can be applied to ensure that, regardless of market direction, you will inevitably become a winner. And I feel like once you start to act like that winner, then it's pretty hard to not be a winner, because at that point, your success is dictated by your own means and not by what the market does. And I feel like that is powerful. And to some people, that might mean just sitting in cash 100%. To me, it just means finding a balance to the point where, and I exaggerate it to an extent to where it's not true, but it is true in a grand, sort of scheme. If BTC goes to $1 million tomorrow, I'm okay. If it goes to zero tomorrow, I'm okay. I'm always in balance, right? So it's like, that is the entire sort of thought process.
Merky, let
Dude,
me hit you.
I'm so glad that you were. Sorry, Wabi. I'm
It's right.
glad Mercury you brought up about like kind of the ethos of trading is just to be able to pivot and like recognize when things are changing. And I think that's a really good point to make, because like there was a lot of point, like you said, where everyone's just sitting there trying to call the bottom and everyone's just waiting for lower and lower prices. And then you have to be able to like change your bias. And I'm not talking about like flip flopping like midday every day, oh, it's going up, oh, it's going down now. But, just looking like when I saw BTC just start chatting in earlier this month, I was like, okay, dude, it looks like this rally has legs. And like kind of, people were kind of fading it in the sense of, oh, it's a fraudulent pump because of the Binance cartel and all that stuff. Like, there's all this different noise, but at the end of the day, you just got to play what's in front of you, man. Like the chart, as soon as, especially after we reclaimed 20K, that's the point where I was like, okay, it's time to really buy some alts, and it's time to just start looking for setups, and it's time to, you can't sit here and just listen to all the noise on CT sometimes. I think a lot of times, especially if your like feed isn't super curated, it can really hurt you. And I think also just sticking to your guns on like if you have a thesis that you really think is sound, then you need to just stick with it. Like me and Wabi were talking about, in December, what like the my two biggest positions are Ave and Matic. And Ave, I was really, really convicted on because I was telling Wabi, they had more TVL than the market cap. And so that was just a very simple thesis that I was like, look, this coin it's objectively undervalued because there's more money staked in this protocol than what the current market cap is. So eventually that's going to flip. And Ave's been like, it's up like 2x from my entry. Like I was buying a lot of it at like 50 to $60 and basically screaming that it's undervalued. And so I'm really satisfied with that, and I'm still holding that. And then
Damn.
Matic too, I was like, the team is really good. It seems like they're doing a lot. What's up, Wabi?
I was just gonna say let's not forget that they actually make money with little effort. They make
Yeah,
money.
dude.
Maker
One of the
makes
only
money.
yeah, that was
Yeah.
another part of my thesis. I was like,
Yeah.
it's literally one of the only three protocols that's actually, producing revenue. And that's more than you can say about almost any other coin. And so and it's the only place that like big boys can stake and actually make money. There's not really anywhere else with enough liquidity that they can, capture yield on and borrow and put up post collateral on. And so I was just like, man, dude, when things turn around, this thing's gonna go up. Right? It's just that simple. And so I
And
had a lot of conviction in that. What's up,
you
Mercury?
know what's funny about that is that people ask me my thoughts on fundamentals all the time. So everything that you just said had nothing to do with technicals, right? And
Yeah.
yet Aave was on my watch list, those videos that I make. I didn't make one last week. I was too lazy, but I did just say the same coins as last week. And I said, take away this coin and add these two coins. Aave has been on my watch list of those videos that I've been making for the past 3 weeks. And you just gave me all fundamental analysis, and I only use technical analysis. Here we are watching the exact same chart, right? And it's like that self-fulfilling kind of prophecy. If your thesis is correct, I don't care if you tell me, hey, it's going up because fundamentals, because it's one of the three best, protocols, it's actually making revenue, whatever. Or you could just tell me, I don't know, Ave, I just really like the logo. I just think it's going to go up, right? It doesn't matter. Like either way, you're right because number is going up, and if number is going up, it's impossible for me to not see it. And that's the point that I want to get across to people. That's what I try to do, is try to show people. And I did, presently I'm doing this daily and showing people. The video at 17.4K is just the most recent example, right? It's like, instead of trying to forecast what the market is going to do, just interpret what the market is already doing. And you can perceive probabilities in either way because you have the mental capabilities of a 4-year-old at least, right? I have that much confidence in everybody listening to this right now. You have at least the technical capabilities of a 4-year-old. So just by assessing what the chart is already doing, you can give yourself an understanding of probabilities from a perception standpoint, not from a statistical standpoint, because we don't actually know those numbers. We can't crunch it down. This isn't blackjack. There's, isn't 52 cards in the deck. I can't say exactly the standard deviation of the probabilities when I have a hard 16 and the dealer showing a face card. I can't give you those exact same probabilities the way that I can in blackjack, right? But you have a perception of it. And the way that I break down that perception is, if you have, or if you want to build a snowman, you have to start with a very large snowball first. If you wanted to build a very large snowball, you have to start with a large snowball first. If you wanted to build a large snowball, you have to start with a snowball first. So the reason that I never dabbled in bottom calling is because the entire time when we come down, we're heading to the bottom right corner, we put in a wick, we bounce 10%, 20%, whatever, right? Everyone's on Twitter, have fun staying poor. Did you buy the dip? Blah, 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 whatever. This time's different. Run it back turbo, right? I'm just like, well, we haven't done anything significant yet. We haven't even built the snowball. So what is there exactly for me to acknowledge? All 4 times that I went bullish during 2022, including the most recent time in 2023, a couple weeks ago, we had already built the large snowball. And then from there, right, my biggest complaint that I have is when I flipped bullish on BTC in April, it only did 15%. Meanwhile, ETH did 60%. I applied the exact same mentality. It did 60%. My biggest complaint, my biggest worry at that point, applying that sort of mindset, was BTC only did 15%. And by the time that the same exact trend that made me flip bullish broke, I was only up 2% on all the remaining spot buys that I had. What, like, that is the thought process to a winner, right? And that is when you put yourself in those options that you have available to you, when you're assessing the dominoes that you want to knock over, right? Because the way that I think about it is, it really is like a chess match. Once you make that move, you can't go back. You can't come back and pick up that domino any more than you can go pick up that chess piece and move it back to your, point after your turn is over. You can't do that. So every single move has to be extremely well thought out. Once you knock over that domino, then it leads to a string of decisions that you have from there, right? So if you just put more emphasis on those dominoes and what's being knocked over, then you might find yourself in better positions. And when you put yourself in those better positions, the dominoes that you have available to you in terms of what options which one do you want to knock over, are much better on average than something else, right? Than trying to buy a bottom, seeing drawdown -5%, selling, having to buy back higher. And it's just a terrible sort of, the options available to you are just awful. Let's just put it that way. But when you apply a winner's sort of mindset, you just kind of fall into being a winner.
I want to throw this in there, Mercury, since you mentioned Miyamoto Musashi. There's a quote, and he says, "The way of strategy is the way of nature. When you appreciate the power of nature, knowing the rhythm of any situation, you will be able to hit the enemy naturally and strike naturally." So for me, that kind of translates like if you fight against the flow of water, if you fight against the narrative, there comes a crossroads. Do you want to be right, or do you want to make money? And for myself, when I'm sort of seeing these liquidity games that I've seen before, it's just like you just have to take a punt, right? And just like Payne, we are fundamental swing traders. Like, we're not trying to do things uh, weekly or bi-weekly. Like, we like to sort of be more longer term, and throughout this crisis, there was still TVL being added in Aave, and on Maker, I believe, there was this ETH whale that posted his collateral um, right around the yearly open, and that was essentially like the biggest posting in Maker since the bull run. And on top of that, if we want to add more similarities to 2019, the leading exchanges for spot buys for BTC on stablecoins are OKX and Huobi, right? And I'm sure you've seen it, Mercury. Like, a lot of the CT lore people, they like to do the 2019 ad infinitum. It's like a Latin term, ad infinitum, and it's basically like the same thing, same similarities over and over and over again. So with this Miyamoto Musashi quote, it's sort of like recognizing that flow of nature. And if you stand in front of it and you say this time is different, and you wanna F around, well, I just have to say you're about to find out, right? You're about to find out. And there's a lot of left curve takes, Mercury, a lot of left curve takes. I kind of consider myself as left curve capital. And like, we're in a situation now where like things are slowly healing, right? And there's a term that says the a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, right? So for upside, your weakest link was people like FTX and Alameda, right? Once they were gone, it took a couple of weeks for nature to heal itself, but eventually, that laid the groundwork for some, you want to call them industry players or not, but it kind of laid the groundwork for, the probability of upside volatility to kick in, right? And you're actually starting to see some fundamental things actually change, and eventually fundamentals do reflect in price. And one of my left curve takes was Terra V2, right at $1, dude. That thing was at $1. And like that ecosystem started producing actual revenue, and their validator sets were going crazy. It's one of the strongest validator sets in all of Tendermint, right? Like that whole Cosmos ecosystem, and there's a ton of development going on, and like they're hiring and all of that stuff. So for me, my left curve take is this: if this company was essentially bankrupt and had nothing in its treasury, and everything was just pretty much at zero, and now all of a sudden, like, they're hiring, their whole website got a revamp, there's all these narratives, and there's clear efforts being done in the background to kind of pick this thing off of its feet. I'm gonna left curve it, dude. i'm not I'm not a macro guru, I'm not an in silico, I'm not any of these other guys that use complex narratives. And that's why I appreciate you, man. You kind of put it into a clean perspective, easy to digest. So I'm thankful, dude, that you didn't capitulate and left CT, because honestly, it would kind of suck, man. It would kind of, it would really suck, dude. And I'm glad we were able to exchange messages around the holiday season. And it was ironic how we were both playing God of War. And as far as Ragnarok, it's a bit harder to get it for PS4 unless you order it from Amazon. But it's available to download from the PlayStation Store, I believe, for the PS4. But if not, then I guess it's time to hunt for a PS5 pretty soon. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that Miyamoto Musashi quote, and definitely like reading some of this literature from the olden days can definitely help as you progress through these markets, really. So
And I like too, Mercury, how you said that most of the time you're going to be like bullish at tops and bearish at bottoms. And I think like people take that at face value, like, oh, that's dumb. It's like, no, it's not dumb. Like, you just play the trend until it stops working. And so right now, we're in an uptrend. And so I'm going to keep looking for plays and looking for setups and looking for longs until I get stopped out, basically. And at that point, obviously, it'll be, I'm not going to lose all the capital from the run up or anything. It'll just be like, oh, well, that trade didn't work anymore. So it's time to switch up. It's time to pivot. And you just have to be willing to change. But you can't also just sit there and be waiting like, oh, I'm not going to do anything until we just start dipping. It's like, well, who knows, bro? That might not even be until 28K or something. So in the meantime, I'm going to keep looking for setups and keep looking for longs until that stops working.
Yeah, no, exactly, man. No, so the way that I break it down, and you're right, it's funny because I tweeted that once that I would always be bullish at tops and bearish at bottoms. And I had like someone replied and was like, did you mean to write it like that? And I had a couple of people DM me like, what does this mean? What, how? And
No, I understood it perfectly. I was like,
it's
that's a
like,
really good quote, dude.
yeah, no, it is, because the beauty in it is that essentially, if the market plays out, and let's all remember why we're here, right? Because crypto moves exponentially. It's potentially grossly, underpriced and might get repriced incredibly higher, right? Exponentially higher, logarithmically higher, however you want to express it. It's going to go up many, many hundreds of percentages, right? Maybe. So if that's the case, and that is, it tends to be that those happen, or that sort of mispricing happens in these short spurts of whether it be weeks or a couple months or a year-long bull market cycle or whatever it may be, then you should theoretically be able to ride the trend. And then by the time that the trend breaks, it's not going to matter because you're still up many hundreds of percentages. And it's like, well, okay, yeah, but let's go back to like the example in April. I flip bullish on BTC. We only get a 15% uptrend. Ooh, 15%. Haha, right. And then by the time that the trend breaks, I'm only up 2%. how do I classify that as a winner, mindset? The beauty in that is that the same way that that mindset is engineered, it can be reverse engineered. What started the snowball? Okay, let's say these moving averages on this sort of time frame with this sort of structure breaking. Okay, how did that expand into a much larger snowball? And you continue that process until eventually you're just riding that trend, right? Or at the very least, you give yourself the anticipated outcome. You give yourself the, rather than, oh, this is going to break down, it's a sweep of the highs, bro, it's a bull trap, bro, it's, whatever, the biggest bull trap I've ever seen, whatever the hell, right? Instead of doing that, you're at least just acknowledging what is happening on the chart. So you give yourself an edge in terms of anticipation alone, right? Your job from there is to try your best to play it in a way that if that anticipated outcome occurs, you reap a reward. And if it doesn't, you're still okay, right? That's what it means to be a trader. So if that is the process that got you there in the first place, you should be able to reverse engineer that process. So did I actually only see a 2% gain from my spot buys on BTC during that month of April or whatever when it went up 15%? No, I saw closer to like a 5 or 6 or 7% gain, right? Because I reverse engineered the same mindset that got me there. I took profit on the resistance, the initial resistance on the way up. I took profit on the initial breakdown, the same thing that started the rally on a very, very small scale. And then when all of the arguments that I had accumulated in terms of bullish arguments, that large snowball started to, kind of diminish or just get crushed with counter arguments in the opposite direction, with a new snowball being created in terms of weakness and bearish arguments, and that starting to overlap all of the bullish arguments we had. A fancy way of me saying you have to break the 15-minute 200 moving averages if you ever want to break the 4-hour 200 moving averages. You have to break the hourly 200, right? You have to do all those kinds of things. So as that starts to come into fruition, you scale out the same way that you scaled in, right? The same way that you're able to determine relevancy on the way up, you should be able to determine relevancy in terms of weakness arguments on the way down. It's like every argument that is created to, make me look like an idiot, I have already accounted for it because I'm in a winner's sort of mindset, because I trade the market in such a way that I'm constantly at peace. So yeah, it's a good point, and it's something that more people would probably do better off with than a lot of the speculation that occurs. But yeah, to quote Miyamoto Musashi again, Wabi, since this has become a Miyamoto Musashi reading group now, he also has a quote, something along the lines of, "If you know the way, you'll see it broadly in all things." Something along those lines. I might have butchered the quote a little bit, but it's something along those lines. If you know the way, if you can see the path, you'll see it in all things broadly. Something like that, right? And it's funny that when the space started, I discussed how the best thing to relate to markets is books that have absolutely nothing to do with markets. I've also found that me trying to master markets has helped me trying to master life, right? The way that I approach relationships, the way that I approach business partnerships, the way that I approach just society in general, just all aspects of life, to the point where it started to become kind of scary because someone asked me, what's it been like to have a puppy for the past 6 or 7 months or whatever, and I almost told them it's been the most plus decision I've ever made in my life. And at that point I realized that I am mentally ill. But it really is amazing that if you try to master markets, you will help yourself master life, because to master markets is to master life, because you're not trying to master the market, you're really just trying to master yourself, right? Because at the end of the day, the clearest message is a 4-year-old can tell you what is happening on the chart. At all times what is happening on the chart. You just decide to neglect it, or you don't have the emotional sort of discipline to play into that analysis. And that is factual, right? I could go find little Timmy right now. He would tell me numbers going up the top right corner. You really can't argue against that. So, that sort of way of thinking. And yeah, man, I really am just a nerd about markets, to be honest. I kind of just obsess over it.
Wow, dude. That was pretty good, man. Thank you. That was epic, brother. That was truly epic. I see we're at the top of the hour, and we want to be respectful of all of our producers' times. If anyone has any questions they want to come up and ask or give any statements, feel free to click on the request button, and I'll bring you right up. We'll give it a few moments. All right. With that being said, Mercury, as much as I want to continue the conversation, I want to be respectful of your time. We did say we would put this in an hour. Let me see. Give me one moment. Hold on, guys. Yeah, sorry. Spaces was kind of like not letting me move and all that stuff. But all right, guys. If you want to catch a replay of the space, it'll be uploaded on our YouTube 5 to 10 minutes afterwards. If you want to join our Discord, it's up here on the Nest. I want to thank you, Mercury, for taking the time out of your day and talking shop with us. All things Miyamoto Musashi quotes. We're probably going to do a book club space on Valentine's Day, so I'm looking forward to that. I want to thank you for coming up and catching up with us, and also to our good friend Feel Pain for taking the time out of his day to come up on these spaces with me here and there.
Appreciate it, brother.
No doubt,
Thanks,
man. No
Mercury.
doubt. No doubt. And Mercury
Thanks,
can't
guys.
wait. Mercury can't wait for our next discussion, man. In the next month or so, brother. Always good to have you up on here. It's been a pleasure getting to know you since the summertime, dude. Always a great experience, and always nothing but signal from you, man. We always appreciate that. And guys, do me a favor, and everyone here, follow Trader Mercury. Always a good individual when it pertains to everything crypto markets. And if you're new to these Twitter spaces, feel free to follow us here at Because Bitcoin and turn on bell notifications so that you can be made aware whenever we do go live with spaces. We are pushing all of our content here on Twitter spaces at Because Bitcoin. And with that being said, thank you all so much. I'll see you guys tomorrow. As far as what time I'm going to do the space, I do not have a set time yet, but we'll say 7 p.m. Eastern time, just for namesake. So that being said, everyone, have a good rest of your day. We do have market talk within the next hour, so tune into that with our boy Carter. Thank you all so much. Have a good rest of your Thursday. Take care and God bless you.
Thanks, Wabi. Thanks, Feel Pain.
Yeah, thanks, dude. Of course. Take care.
Take care, guys.